Hi, and welcome to Time for Transition, Students Leading the Process. Here I have Heidi Wyman to tell us about that.
Hi, like Heidi said, I'm Heidi Wyman. I'm a transition consultant to New Hampshire. I work with various schools, parents, students, and organizations around the shift from the IEP process in earlier years of education into how that differs as you approach transition planning at the high school level. Transition planning can start as early as middle school, sometimes earlier when a team is really ready to delve into letting the student drive the process. That's where we start helping a student build self-determination skills and help them have skills to really take charge of their own lives as they get closer to the end of high school. That's the purpose and the intent of transition planning, and that is what I'm going to talk to you more about today. I'm a transition consultant, really specifically made here in New Hampshire. I am very familiar with New Hampshire rules and regs and how those relate to the planning process for engaging with outside agencies like New Hampshire Vocational Rehabilitation, which is now calling itself Voc Rehab New Hampshire, or the area agency system, disability support services at the college level, all the various supports that can be available to students with disabilities after high school, if it's a part of the planning process during high school. The way that we make sure that that's really meaningful for the student is when we help them get involved in the planning process early. And that's letting them drive the process as much as they're able to at whatever age they're ready to start being involved. It doesn't mean that we're stepping back and getting out of the way completely. It means that we as helpful adults are using that IEP transition planning process to teach them skills that will help them take control of their lives and give them opportunities to practice these same skills, which are called self-determination skills. And that really matters as students start to get older, because it's really important for them to have time to practice learning how to manage the challenges that might have come along with their specific disability in a comfortable and safe environment before they try to practice those skills independently. And I have some voices of people with disabilities to share a little bit more about why that is so important. So let me just go ahead and share this particular video. I'm going to share sound and optimize for video, so that should come through loud and clear. And here we go.
Most people don't think they can speak up, but that's not true. We have a voice. We're not a human being and a normal person just like everybody else. That's how God made us.
Nothing is more frustrating than to learn you have a right and to learn how to express and then to be shut down.
When people don't listen to you and don't hear what you want, how does that make you feel?
Sad. Angry, sad, and mad.
Sad and lonely.
Angry.
Kind of sad.
How does it make you feel when people do respect what you say?
Happy. Glad that people respect what I say. It makes me feel good. I feel happy, overjoyed.
Happy.
Exciting.
Are you comfortable making your own decisions?
I am, because I can become more independent.
For people who don't have a disability, we naturally give our kids an opportunity to pick their clothing. We naturally give them an opportunity to pick their outside interest, their friends, etc. For people with disabilities, in an attempt to protect them out of love, those things are removed.
There are a lot of assumptions made about expectations and about the rights. Also, even about supported decision making, people think that your child is not going to be safe out there floundering on their own.
Self-determination is part of the human experience. It is natural.
They need to be treated like any other child. Presume competence. People will live up to your expectations. And if your expectations are low, then you're selling people short.
they're capable of so much, and getting to the point where they're running the show completely on their own.
You have to have good expectations, and you have to empower your child to have a voice and give them that voice.
Self-advocacy is the counterpart to self-determination. How can you advocate for yourself effectively if you're not self-determined? They complement each other.
I do believe in the dignity of risk, and I do believe that she has a right to make her own choices about her life.
I'm just a special little girl, just trying to be normal like everybody else.
Who do you want to be in control of your life?
We just want the same thing everyone else does.
How would you feel if someone took all your rights away?
I'll be angry.
It's his life, and we have to give him the dignity of risk. Right?
Regimundo.
Correctamundo.
And what is the future for you?
Like to have their own voice and like speak up. Don't limit me.
Do you want somebody else to make your decisions for you, or do you want to make your own decisions? And how does it make you feel that you're in charge?
Happy.
All right, let me just stop sharing that video. So that's a great way of just framing, why do we want to teach self-determination skills in the IEP? First of all, it's the purpose behind special education law. The purpose behind special education law and the tail end of special education law, when students are getting ready to leave high school, is the time when we really should be thinking about, have we given them the skills to move forward as an adult and start to make their own decisions? A lot of the time, the IEP process can just kind of chug along like it has since elementary school and miss the opportunity to change how we do it. What we should be doing is stepping back and having the student take as much responsibility as they're ready for, depending on where they are in that self-determination process. Again, that is the intent of transition planning in IEP law. But it takes the intent of the whole team to make it happen. And at a minimum, schools are only required to be in compliance with certain elements of transition planning, which can allow the team to allow the student to be more self-determined, but it doesn't require it. I'm going to share some more about that with you. At a minimum, schools are required to invite students to the IEP meeting where life after high school will be discussed. This must take place at age 16 or sooner if the team starts talking about it sooner. But they're not required to make them come to the meeting, just to invite them. It's up to the IEP team, including the parents, to determine and figure out, how can this student participate? How are we going to prepare them to participate in a way that really works for everyone involved? It's not always an easy step to make in the planning process. It's not easy to switch from, if you've had a kind of meeting process where you didn't feel comfortable having your child be involved, it's not easy to make that change. It's important to make that change because of the reasons we just looked at in that video. If we expect students to increase their independence as they leave school, we have to step back and let them practice that. And we have to teach them the skills to be able to do so. But special education is also required to write what are called post-secondary goals. And this is a new piece in the IEP that wasn't necessarily talked about prior to age 16. It can be talked about prior to age 16, but it doesn't have to be in the IEP until age 16. So special education is required to write post-secondary goals, which are goals for life after high school in the areas of further education, employment, and independent living, if that student needs a goal to be able to help them with the process of living more independently. So if there is something that schools should do to help the student learn to live more independently, then the student should have a post-secondary independent living goal. But those are things that are very much a team process if everybody on the team understands that that's what's supposed to be. What schools are required to do is to write those post-secondary goals, and they are required to use information that comes from the student, not the parent, to write those goals. Those goals are supposed to be based on their interests and preferences. And they're supposed to use tools called transition assessment to gather that information from the student. So the team really should use those requirements for transition planning. The opportunity to invite the student, which is a requirement but can be used as more, and the opportunity to perform transition assessment, which is a requirement but can be so much more, because that gives the team the opportunity to really integrate the student's voice into this legal document, give the student a chance to see their words in a legal document that they can then use to help them set a course for their own future. If we engage students in the process in that way, and if we start doing it sooner than high school, then we really are giving them the best opportunity to be independent as they move into life after high school. They can start being a part of meetings early in their education career by coming into IEP meetings for a very short amount of time. They may start by coming in at the very beginning and saying, "Hi, my name is, and I like to do this, and I don't like to do that, and I need some help with this, and now I'm going to go because my mom said I could." That's an appropriate way for a student to be involved in an IEP meeting in the early stages of their school career. It's even an appropriate way for a student to be involved in a high school IEP meeting if it's their first time. If they're nervous to be there, the most important thing is that the team come together and make sure that it's a positive experience for the student from the start, and that it continues to be a positive experience for the student, because it's new and it's scary and it's hard, and they're not going to want to do it again if we don't make it enjoyable from the get-go. So we want them to understand that we want them to be a part of these meetings. We want them to understand that there's great value in their voice being heard at these meetings. We want them to understand that this is a meeting that is about them, that is for them, and that their voice is the most important voice. We as adults are usually the ones who have to unlearn the way that we've done things so far and practice doing them in a different way. There is a lot of evidence that shows that students with disabilities who've learned self-determination skills early on are more likely to have meaningful jobs, higher levels of post-school education and employment, and generally higher levels of satisfaction. As you saw in that video, the young people in that video shared that when they feel heard, they feel happy. And when they don't feel heard, they don't feel happy. And we know that how we feel about our lives contributes heavily to the level of satisfaction that we have in the things that we have to do on a day-to-day basis. So that is sort of tying together the rationale with the things that you can possibly do. I want to show you a video that is a video of a young person who is leading their own IEP process. This is a young man named Garrett Shows from a recording, a movie called Intelligent Lives. If you aren't familiar with the movie Intelligent Lives by Dan Habib, it was produced here in New Hampshire. There are clips in the video from other parts of the country, but Dan Habib is a New Hampshire native, and he has a son, Samuel, who is also a New Hampshire native who has a disability. And Dan has done a great deal of videography related to his son's journey through special education. Intelligent Lives is very much about the transition planning process of several young adults, not his son's specific experience, but this experience of several young people in their transition planning process. And Garrett happened to be one of the stories that he included that is a Conval, New Hampshire student. So let me go ahead and share this this video just so we can get a on Garrett leading his IEP meeting. Ooh, hold on one second. I don't think I hit all the right buttons. Let me try that one more time. Got it this time.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Garrett Sales. I'm a sophomore at Conville High School. Let me tell you about myself. My interest: eating chocolate and peanut butter, playing captain flag and unified basketball, learning more about being independent and prepare for college. My abilities: interacting with people, playing sports, making friends. Things that are harder for me: remember more than one or two directions, geometry, memory.
So you had a huge year with transition.
I'll say.
You are one of the few sophomores I know that has a job. And you pretty much got that all by yourself.
Our biggest thing is working towards that goal of independence. That's really huge for him.
So,
Next year too, I think we talked about doing internships.
Yeah, it's always good to ask.
Yep,
Right.
and getting you outside of the building, even maybe going down to the middle school or some of the other schools around
that's the
here.
goal. Yep, that's I really want to do. I really work well with young children. I am going to start looking at colleges.
Okay. So you've been doing very well in English class.
I feel like I get distracted very easily though with like other classmates of mine.
Mom and Dad are here, and I'm here, and Miss Mon is here, and these ladies are here. We're all here for you. And so when you have frustrations, or you're like, I just don't get it, we say, okay.
And Garrett, remember, when you're feeling overwhelmed, go to those first couple slides, which is who you are as a person. Goes so much farther than anything, and that is that you get along really well with people. You have people skills. You're caring. You're loving. You're outgoing. Those go a long way. And remember that when you're feeling overwhelmed. Okay, I'm really a great person, and I just want to push myself farther.
Yep.
So don't get too overwhelmed about stuff.
Okay.
So I thought this was a great meeting. Can I do the last slide?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you all for coming. Thanks for all your help. And yeah.
I love it. That's awesome.
I feel like obviously.
All right, we're going to leave that video there, but I will encourage you to Google Garrett Shows I'm in Charge. It's freely available on YouTube. Great video that shows what it looks like to have a student really take an active and leadership role in their own IEP planning process. And I think it's only about 17 minutes long. So highly encourage that, as well as Intelligent Lives, which is a much longer film and is more broad about several students who have different types of disabilities and have different levels of employment skill that they're ready to take into the world, and how their teams supported that for those students. There's something about that last piece of Garrett's video that I want to say something about, which is just that transition planning is also a change in IEP process because we're focusing on the student's strengths. And so much of special education is about focusing on their deficits and the things that they need to fix to be able to participate in regular education classrooms or to access their education. Transition planning is about what do they like? What are they good at? Because that's what we build our futures on. We don't build our futures on our deficits. We build our futures on the things that we enjoy and the things that we want to do and the things that will get us out of bed in the morning. So we don't want to build our futures on the things that are hardest for us. We want to recognize that those exist, and we want to think about whether or not the jobs that we want to do involve something that we really don't enjoy. That is useful and valuable transition assessment information that all teams want to take into account. If you don't like it, it's not a good piece of, it's not a skill to build your future career on. If it's something that you don't like very much, but you have to do it for your future career, that's a different story. But those are the kinds of conversations that are important for transition planning. Where do we start? So what I'm going to show you now is a few tools that are going to accompany this video. You should be able to find them near the video. You should be able to find a link to these tools that I'm going to share with you near the location where you found this video. These are a series of PDFs that would come right up here. Yes. So first of all, in this packet, there is a packet of about student-led IEP quick tips and tools, things to think about before engaging the student in the meeting, before engaging the family in the meeting. Now, I will say that these tools are directed at educators, and so there are some family engagement tips. It doesn't, so, you know, just if you're reading this as a parent, give the tips to yourself. But the basic focus here is, what are the things we need to think about to prepare the student before the meeting? What do we need to do at the meeting to make sure that that student feels like their voice is heard? How do we help others prepare to get ready for that meeting? Because if we aren't always used to letting the student speak first, we often as adults try to speak for them. And what's really important is being comfortable with giving the student time to form their thoughts and to access the part of their brain that they need to access to be an active participant in their meeting, especially if they haven't had a lot of practice with it. There's also in that same packet a sample transition IEP meeting agenda. This is a way to approach a transition focused meeting without starting at page 1 of the IEP and following that IEP all the way through to the end. Because when you're having a transition focused meeting, you can start the conversation with having the student potentially share the goals for life after high school. Or if the student isn't comfortable doing that, asking the team to turn to that page in the IEP and read what those goals for life after high school are, and then asking other members of the team who are there to share the students' present levels of academic and functional performance. We can ask those professionals around the table to share their information in relationship to what the student wants to do after high school, and not just in relationship to high school completion. Because it is important to know how the student's doing academically and functionally in terms of being able to finish high school, but it's a whole added layer to the conversation to talk about how they're doing today as it relates to post-high school. Sometimes you'll find that when we start talking about how a student is in school, that they may be exhibiting a skill that's really useful in the world of work. As with Garrett, he's a people person. He likes people, he's really good with people, he's very engaging. Those are great skills in the world of work. They can be a distraction in the classroom. So how important for that student to understand, hey, you're great with people and you love to engage with people. It's not okay to do here in school every day, but it could be a great work skill for you. So that's a small example of a way that sometimes starting the meeting by talking about post-school goals can really add to what people offer when they talk about the student's present level of academic and functional performance. And then from there, moving into transition service needs, the course of study, and other elements that are required. Those are all included here in the sample agenda, where you would have an IEP that is more focused on, an IEP meeting more focused on transition than previous meetings may have been. This also mentions the conversation about age of majority, which we're not going to get into right now, but if it isn't something that you've thought very much about or learned very much about, a really good topic to dig into. And then finally, some agendas and simple scripts for involving a student in their own IEP meeting, just examples of some activities that I've done with students in the past. From there, I want to share with you what a transition assessment, a basic informal transition assessment looks like. This is a very basic informal transition assessment, which is very valid. So even though I use the word very basic, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. This is a formal version of what do you want to be when you grow up? which is what many students hear throughout their lives. When we ask those questions and we write the answers down and we put it in the student's file and we use those answers to create goals for life after high school, because we've asked them, what will your life look like after high school? What will you do for work? Will you go to college or some other type of ongoing education? We've asked those, what do you want to be when you grow up, questions in a slightly more formal way. And we can then use their answers to craft goals for life after high school. That is what the school is required to do when they create post-secondary goals. Now, as a parent, you are also an incredibly important element of this planning process. But for the transition component of the IEP, these answers come first. Your input is also very important. And so there's also a sample form for parents to use to answer those questions for themselves. One place that it can be really great to start with your child, to start this conversation with your family member. It can be great to have each of you fill this out for you to help the student, perhaps, but then fill it out for yourself or have somebody else help the student who has a good relationship with that student, and then have a conversation where you share answers with each other. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? What are the things that you think the student doesn't understand? What are the things that the student thinks you don't understand? Where are you the same and where are you different as a family member and student when it comes to your vision for life after high school? That's a really important starting place. Another tool in this same packet is a life trajectory worksheet. Sometimes it's hard to say what you want when you're talking about the abstract, because life in 5 or 7 or 10 years can feel really uncertain, and it can be really difficult to answer the question, what do I want my life to look like? I don't know how to think that way. For some of us, abstract thinking is really difficult. And so sometimes it's easier to say, here's what I don't want. I don't want my life to look like this. I'm afraid of this kind of thing happening. And sometimes when we're able to get out the worries and concerns that we have about the future, we're better able to start to describe what our vision for a good life is. This tool, a vision planning tool, takes that same question of the life trajectory worksheet and breaks it down into categories related to daily life, community living, social and spirituality, healthy living, safety and security. So and you can see in this second column are some specific questions in each one of these categories. And this is a way, again, to help really think about what does a good life look like? If I'm thinking about the whole of my child's future, if I'm thinking about the whole of my future as an individual, what is that going to look like for me? Here's what I don't want. And the reason I've added these tools into what you'll be able to find along with this video are that these are charting the life course tools, which are tools that the area agency system in New Hampshire has adopted for individuals' planning purposes. So that system, the area agencies for developmental services, are the agencies in New Hampshire that are available to help people with developmental disabilities after they leave high school. And these are the tools that they recommend families use to have a good, thoughtful process about what they want their child's life to look like. So again, these are all tools that you should be able to find in a zip drive, along with a couple of other resource packets. They should be in the vicinity of this video. So if you are looking for those particular tools that I just shared, please go ahead and look around for those. And Parent Information Center, I'm sure will be happy to help you locate them if you have any trouble with that. I think that's all I have, Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi, for sharing your knowledge and presenting this topic for families. I appreciate you coming out today.
It was my pleasure.